So today we are playing another episode of Star Agent 87 Rick Ranger using SHADOWSPACE, and I'll tell you all about it right after the intro. Hi folks, and welcome to Sharp Mountain Games. Here we talk about group role-playing games, solo role-playing games, and there are plenty of actual plays in the playlist. You can check out our print and PDF products at Amazon, Lulu, Drive-Thru, and Roll20, and they're all linked below. Let's get started, and we're glad you're here. Let me start out this video with a thank you. I'm now over 1,000 subscribers. I never thought I would get to that level. I mean, I'm just a dinky little channel here, and I do it for my own fun mostly. So just thank you if you've subscribed, and if you watch the videos, I so appreciate it. I don't make money off this channel, and even if I eventually do, it'll be very little. So it's just more the community and the camaraderie that I appreciate. So we're playing Star Agent 87. So it's a science fiction game, and Star Agent 87 is Rick Ranger, and he works for the Planetary Alliance, and he does, you know, kind of the jobs and sneaky jobs that people need done. I don't know if it's kind of like a James Bond. You could think of a little bit like that. Maybe James Bond without the womanizing. So in any event, here's Rick Ranger, who is our Star Agent 87, and you could see he's a human, but he definitely has like sort of the alien eyes there. He is accompanied by R-MD, the robot doctor, who is his companion. And also he's been recently assigned T'ANA Anglestar, who is another agent, and she's kind of very much more scientific than he is and has some psionic powers. So she's his new partner, and he's not sure if he likes having a new partner because he kind of is used to working alone or just he and the doc. So that's our cast, and let me tell you about the system. And the system is all linked below. We are using SHADOWSPACE by Karsten Rossner. And he is also SOLOSPELUNKIng here on YouTube, and his channel is just wonderful. His channel and some others, especially Mage Hammer and Tabletop Wanderer, have been a real inspiration to me. And there's a lot of other good ones out there too. I can't list them all right now. Sacred Art of Gaming and a whole bunch of others that I really, really enjoy. And there's some that maybe I don't watch as much, but they might work for you. You know, people do their solo gaming differently. So what is SHADOWSPACE? It's Shadow Dark adapted for space opera. So basically Shadow Dark adapted for Star Wars and those kind of things. You could play Star Trek with it, but with the serial numbers filed off because, you know, obviously you can't step on somebody else's intellectual property. And it's really good. So if you like D20 rollover systems, things that are close to 5e and definitely close to Shadow Dark, this is a way to go. It might be an easy way, too, to get your group to try some science fiction because at least the dice rolling conventions aren't that different. If you have a reluctant group, but you want to stretch out and get out of the dungeons a little bit. And then also he has another new product that I just ordered, but I don't have it yet. I have the PDF version that I printed out, and that's the Solo RPG Framework and Toolbox for Space Opera. I ordered it, I think it was like $10 or $10.99 on Amazon, and you can get SHADOWSPACE for about the same. Hardback is a little bit more. It's like $16, $17. But if you add all that up and you 2 or 3 of you go to Taco Bell, you'll easily spend that. So it's very, very reasonable, I think. Now what this is, and I did a full review at one point. What this is not like a full game, but it's a framework. It gives you things, okay, what if you enter a system? What do you do? And what I used for this adventure, I did it offline because I wanted to think about it a little more. I don't think quite as fast on my feet as some other people do. So what I did was I was able to roll in the 3 columns and get an idea, a really good adventure seed, and I made it work. And you have to be creative. Like you may not want to use it exactly the way you get it, but it does work. And the advantage of that is when you feel stuck, it really helps jog your mind. All right, let's get into things because you don't want to hear me talk about this stuff the whole time. So let's give you the recap. So Rick Ranger, Star Agent 87, is on his first mission with his new partner, the psionic scientist T'ANA Anglestar, and his trusty medical droid R-MD, which stands for Robot Medical Doctor. And they rescued a missing scientist, Dr. Weston, and he was studying gravitic anomalies right at the edge of the galaxy. And there were pirates, Graylian pirates, who were hoping to use those for other purposes. Now, the pirates have been captured. I don't have pirates out here, but that's okay. I'm not going to go fishing around for them now. We could just assume that they're being held. However, the ship, the Alpha Dawn, was damaged in the process of fighting off another ship, an alien drone, earlier. So they are back on the planet where Dr. Weston has his lab, and Rick is talking with him, and so is everybody else. So T'ANA wants to know more. Well, what about those space whales we saw in the system? And he explains. He says, "Oh, they travel by bending gravity or perhaps warping space itself." He said, and I think that's why the Graylians were after them, because maybe they wanted to use them for warlike purposes. So Rick tells me, he says, well, what I've done is I've phoned into the Planetary Alliance, and they are going to send a ship here, the Nighthawk. He said, I think I could limp home, but the Nighthawk is in the area, and it's going to take the Alpha Dawn aboard for some repairs. It's heading towards Earth anyway. It just finished a mission out here. So he tells, he says, T'ANA and R-MD, we're going to be getting ready to go soon. And she says, oh, well, that's wonderful. And it'd be good to serve aboard a bigger ship for a while and see what's going on. So they say their goodbyes to Dr. Weston. I'm sure they have some time to spend and, get a little tour of his lab. And I'm going to assume that they rescued the other scientists who are working there. T'ANA is very interested. She's much more the scientific type than Rick is. Rick is more the pilot and stealth and the sneaky stuff. And R-MD also gets them all patched up. Let's just assume that everybody's back to full hit points. And one thing I did do between sessions was I leveled them up. I made them level 2. Rick should actually probably be higher since he's the more experienced person, the more experienced agent. But that's okay for right now. So we're going to have the Nighthawk arrive. And where did I set the Nighthawk? Here it is. So we'll bring it in here. And these don't necessarily, like in your mind, they can represent whatever you like. But this is an old spaceship that I have from when I was a child, and I really like it. Another thing, too, just a little aside here before I get too far into things, I do hope that you try some solo role-playing. And, if you want to play through this scenario, hey, go right ahead. Have a great time. You don't need all this stuff. All you need is some paper to write things down. And, of course, you want your dice. And you might say, well, I don't have SHADOWSPACE. Play whatever system you have. You don't have to play the same system I have. And you might say, hey, but I watched your video, John. I know exactly what's going to happen in this story. No, you don't. Neither do I. We don't know what the dice are going to do. So just I really encourage people to give solo role-playing a try. When I sit down and record these, it's one of the most relaxing times of my week. Absolutely it is. So the ship lands, and they meet the captain, Captain Bixby. And I have a bigger card here to show you Captain Bixby. He may seem familiar. And I know I have the Star Trek logo there, but this is not in the Star Trek universe. This is in my own universe, or your own universe for that matter, because I want to, I want to branch out. And he welcomes them, and he says, "Oh, I'm so glad." He says, we're definitely we're very happy to take you back to Earth, and we'll have your ship. We'll assume that this is big enough to put the Alpha Dawn inside. Like I said, nothing has to be 100% representing it here. And he also has some supplies for Dr. Weston and his people. He said, we just finished a military operation. He says, I hate to say it, but we lost some people. And he said, the captain says, and we're a little bit shorthanded. He said, even the people we have are, they're a little tired. He said, really what I could use, he said, I understand, Rick, that you're a very good pilot. He said, I definitely, if you would be willing to take a turn on the bridge, that would be wonderful. And same thing he says to T'ANA. He says, I any help you could give as a science officer on the bridge would definitely be appreciated. You could man some of the sensor stations. And they both, of course, say, oh, of course, we're very happy to do this. He said, but, we'll let you get settled and we'll see what happens. He says, I'll have my first officer, Commander Frakes, Lieutenant Commander Frakes, show you to your quarters. So Frakes shows them to their quarters, and Rick is thinking to himself, he can't help but notice well, Frakes is a very handsome man, and he can't help but notice that T'ANA, gives him a little bit, maybe a little bit of a look, just for a little longer perhaps than Rick is comfortable with. But he thinks to himself, she's my work partner. She's not necessarily my partner. I guess she can look at whoever she likes or have whatever thoughts she likes. Then he also remembers that T'ANA is psionic, and he never asked her whether she can just read his thoughts automatically, so maybe he blushes a little bit. So let's let them get settled, and then we're going to take off for space. So they say goodbye, goodbye to Dr. Weston, and we hope to interact with you again, maybe in better circumstances. Maybe we can come out here sometime when I'm on patrol. So let me move my dominoes. Let's move Dr. Weston out. We don't need him for a bit yet. And take the ship into space. Now, the ship is called the Nighthawk. And they are in space. And let's see what happens here. So we'll say that in this case, Rick is at the helm, Rick Ranger. And T'ANA is working the science station. And we'll have Captain Bixby there on board. And maybe Commander Frakes is working like the operations, which is the phasers and all that, I'm thinking, because that's usually where Worf. And R-MD, I don't think there's much he can do in terms of would be up on board. So he might be in the back, he checking out. Now, he has mechanics, so he might be helping to repair the Alpha Dawn, which is their ship. And that seems pretty good for right now. So they are traveling through space, and I'm getting a lot of sunlight here, so I apologize if we're getting a little bit of reflection here, but that's all right. And they get a distress call. And the captain says, I'm so glad that you're up here manning the boards. He said, we have a distress call. We have to answer it. Certainly as it's a Planetary Alliance ship, we have to answer this distress call. So they do, and it's not that far. I mean, it's not right on their way. It's in another system. But there is what seems to be a civilian craft, and it is getting attacked by two Marauders, smaller ships. So this one is kind of my Lego flying saucer, and this is my Lego wedge ship. I just tried to make something that would be easy to work with. So let me get my dice tower here ready to go. I'll move everybody over here for now, and we'll let the battle begin. And there'll be a little bit of theater of the mind going on here to see what's going on. All right, so let's see how it's going to work. They're coming upon this, but the alien craft are going to be aware that that there could be a call for some help. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. We go first. 4, 5, 6. The little alien crafts go first. And what did I roll here? Oops, I don't want to turn it. A 2. Okay, good. So the Nighthawk is going to go first, and the captain's going to say, see if you can maneuver into position. So Rick is going to roll his piloting, which is a skill of his. Now, what happens when you have a skill in this system is that you roll with advantage. So that's pretty good. So he has the piloting skill. It's +3, and with advantage, what that works out to is roughly a +6 or +7. That's awfully good. So is he going to do pretty well here? No. and it's a DC 15. So even with the advantage, he is not able to get much help. So he says to Commander Frakes, he says, fire all weapons here. So let's have them take their shot. Oh, maybe T'ANA will be working the science boards there. Let's see if she can do any help here. So that'd be science for her. And her science is +3. Yeah, no, still, I'm not getting anywhere near a 15 here. So he is going to make his shots, and I'm going to say that they can do like 2 shots per turn here. So that's Commander Frakes, and he's getting a +4 on these. So yeah, so 1 shot will hit, and this is a big and pretty powerful ship, so it does a D10. How does it do? It does 5 points of damage on this ship here. I'll just use that to help me keep track of my hit points here. So he does some strong damage to that ship. Now the pirates are going to fire on the Nighthawk here. And they're at +2. Now, the Nighthawk has an AC of 14. So do they beat a 14? No. Boy, both of their shots go wild. All right, so Rick tries to say, well, let me do another pilot roll here. He's going to try to maneuver the ship. Now, he can't do evasive maneuvers on a ship this big, but maybe he can get into a better position for firing. Oh, look, I got a 20. So the 20, there are crits in SHADOWSPACE, but I'm going to say definitely that gives advantage on the shots for Phaeriss here. So 15, yeah, he's going to hit one of the ships. He gets 2 points of damage. I'll say he fired. That was on the other ship here, 2 points of damage. And let's give it a try. Now, I don't think he's going to get advantage on the next one. And I'm not going to have T'ANA do a roll because I think that would be too much all in one thing. So he misses the other ship. Okay, so they are turning, and they may be actually turning to go. They're not sure, but they are going to try and fire upon the Nighthawk. Do they hit? Yes, they do hit with one of theirs. So I got to grab a D6. That's what they do their damage. I have this space D6. Maybe we'll use that. I 3D printed it. 3. So the Nighthawk takes 3 points of damage. They do score on that. And the captain calls over and he says, stop this right now. You're in much more danger than we are. But they do not return his call. All right, so let's see how Rick's piloting works here. Rick Ranger, 18. Look at that. Don't even need to add any bonuses here. Yeah, that is definitely giving Phaeriss advantage on his shots. Didn't go down the tube. Oh, look at that, a 20. That shot hit for double damage. Yes, 7. So, well, this one, let's see, it had 2 damage, so it was at 8. Yeah, this one, let's say he hit this one. This one is in bad shape. And how about the other one? Does he hit the other one? Yeah, let's see, the 11 plus 5, that'll be 15. More than enough. 7 points damage. They are both heavily damaged. And they are turning and fleeing. In fact, this one, with that damage, that one is unfortunately no more. But this one is listing in space. However, the main ship that they are trying to help here, and there's a planet very nearby. We'll say this is the planet for right now. Is saying, we are in real danger of crashing. We took major damage to our engines before you came. All right, so we're going to have to see what they can do so that they don't crash. So T'ANA has, let's see, does anybody have security systems? That's not going to work. We have piloting. Nature is kind of science. So here's what I'm going to say. She would have to get 2 out of 3 nature rolls. Now, she does get advantage on that in order to try to stabilize the ship. And then I'm going to do another roll to see whether they can keep it in space or whether it's going to crash on the planet. So let's see what T'ANA does for her rolls. Okay, DC 15. So we got 1 success. 2 successes with the 19. We already got it. And do we get 3 successes? No. So she got 2 out of the 3. So she is able to get this ship stabilized. Now, let's see if it has to make a crash landing. On a 1, 2, 3, it does. 6. No. Okay. That's fine. So they are able to stabilize it in space, but it is around the planet. They're able to get it into orbit. And Captain Bigsby says, we're going to send people over, and try and help you out and help you with your engineering. Now, I think that while they do that, they're going to try and get a ship over here because they need to take care of them. And then Bigsby will try and make contact and his other people with this other damaged ship here. But that'll all happen off camera. So he gets radioed back, and he gets, we've had major damage over here. We have a situation, and the ship may blow up. Yes, please send people, but not too many. It could be dangerous for them too. So Bixby isn't sure what to do in this situation. So he says, well, we're going to send, not that he's not sure, but he has to think about, he says, well, we're going to send a small contingent over. He said, Rick, how about you and T'ANA, and you'll be under the leadership of Phaeriss here. He can, lead the team. He's a very good operations officer. And he said, perhaps you need to take your medical robot with you as well in case there's any damage. So they are going to make their way on a little shuttle. I don't have a little shuttle handy. They are going to make their way over to the damaged ship where they understand that there's some danger also still. So they've brought over a small shuttle, and I took a little quick break to get a sip of tea here and change the map. So they've come over to the other ship, and we'll assume that all the air is still good here. They haven't lost no hull breaches or anything. And they come on out, and of course Phaeriss takes the lead. It is his ship, and he is they're kind of just along for the ride and helping out. And he greets the aliens, and he says, "Well, what's going on here? Is this a civilian ship?" And the main alien, he says, "No, my name is Tay." He says, "No, we're a scientific vessel." He said, "One of our smaller vessels, discovered something in space out here, and then we were sent to retrieve it." He said, "It's like this energy field or something. And we were able to bring out something to contain it and to bring it back for study." He said, we think this may be extra dimensional or something even that travels between the universes. So what could happen there? The scientist says, we're thinking, we could use it as a probability drive or something, or to learn more about its principles. And Frank said, "Well, what's the emergency here? Do we need to get to engineering?" And they say, "Well, if you can get to engineering, that's great. Maybe you can stabilize the power." And he points, and they notice that it's all emergency lighting. Everything is very dark, very dim here. There's a little bit of a smell occasionally, burnt wiring or burnt transistors or whatever they use here in the for their electricity and all that. He said, and Frank said, "Well, why didn't your folks go down and do that?" And they say, "Well, there's a lot of sparking, but besides that," he said, we don't know what happened. If this thing indeed is extra dimensional or extra universe, it seems like it's called in some kind of guardians, and they're around the engine room. So we didn't want to go down there. We're scientists. We're not people who are used to working with pistols and things like that. So Frank says, "Well, we can handle that." He said, "I think that's our first step is engineering." He says, "Now what about this thing, this anomaly?" And he says, "Oh, well, that's the worst part. It was the containment units were damaged when the power went out, when we were attacked by those pirates. I think they may know that we have it on board. And it's now no longer contained. And what we're worrying," he says, "do you have a scientist on board?" And T'ANA says, "Oh, yes." So he says, "Well, why don't you use your tricorder or your, the scientific analyzer, whatever they call it." Now, she has a nature as a skill, so she's going to do a roll here and try and see what's going on. Oh, okay, look at that, 18. We're fine. She says, "Yes, I'm getting a building up, and it's like space itself could be warping from inside the ship. It's so dangerous," she says. "This could affect the ship, it could affect our ship, and it could affect the planet below. I don't know, if this thing would explode or cause a problem. We have to hurry." And Frank says, Agreed. Don't worry about that." He said, "We're going to get going." And he tells these fellows, he says, "You stay here, you leave it to us. We'll try to be in radio contact, and we will see if we can get the power back on and if we can get this thing contained." So as they're making their way deep inside the ship, you can see I flipped the map, and there is all kind of sparking. I'm going to say up here that this is the main engineering room. So hopefully there's a console inside there that they can use, to shut things down. We'll make that the computer console right there. But there's all these sparks, it's almost like lightning through the corridor. And they're wondering, well, can we even get through here safely? Now, I don't have a ton of room on my desk, unfortunately, so sorry if I'm kind of moving things around here. So R-MD says, I think of all of us, I have the best chance of shutting this down, if I may, Commander, he says to Frakes there. And Frakes says, well, it's dangerous, but be my guest. So we're going to say that he has to make some dexterity checks to make it through. He's only a robot. There's not much he can do. And it's not like these are laser emitters, so they can't fire it. So I'm going to say he has to make 2 out of 3. And for every one that he fails, he's going to take damage. Oh, that's a failure. It's DC 12. Okay, that's a success. He has no bonus on his dexterity. And a success. So he is, I think about C-3PO and R2-D2 at the beginning of A New Hope when they're avoiding, nobody seems to be able to hit them as they're going through that corridor. So he is able to get through all the sparking, but he does take some damage. And let's see, that's a D6 damage. 5 points of damage, so I got to take that off of him. Maybe it's a good thing I made these folks level 2 here. Who knows? And he is going to go in here and start worrying about to see if he can restore the power. And this is very damaged. So I'm going to say he's going to have to do this with disadvantage. And let's see. He does, well, he has systems, operations, and mechanics. So I'm going to say that the advantage and the disadvantage cancel. So it's going to be straight up roll here. And his intelligence is +3. That's 11. No, he's not going to be able to do it. I'm going to say it's like a standard difficulty, maybe about 12 here to do this. And T'ANA says, well, just a minute. Let me see what I can do. And Frank says, oh, there's things you could do? She says, well, let me see. So she's going to use her perceive, which is her wisdom. She's at +3 with that. 17. So with the +3, that's a 20, a dirty 20, as they say. And she says, I'm getting, there's creatures, they're coming. I'm getting something, from mentally from them. And she says, I think there might also be a larger creature. So these creatures, they're not arriving. They kind of almost beam in. Now, these are just paper because I think I'm just going to use them once. I don't know that I'm going to reuse them, and I didn't want to waste an epoxy sticker on them. That's what these ones have, an epoxy sticker. They're just printed on some cardstock because these are ones I might use again for any other game or as an NPC. So these creatures kind of materialize. And I even made a little card of them so you can see it a little bit better. So these seem to be somewhat translucent, somewhat solid. They're not sure. And they are definitely like they're sparking as though perhaps they can give off energy. So let's see. And Frank says, get your phasers up. I don't know. Let's see what happens here. And that's a 4. So that means the bad guys, if they're going to go, are going first. And T'ANA gets a very strong message through the psionics in her mind, must protect the gazelle. Gazelle. No, not gazelle, but they're saying something, gazelle or something. And let's see what they're going to do. I have to read what they can do. Their first attack is everybody has to make a psionics roll to see what happens here. So we're going to do... Now, he's computerized. He's in the other room. I kind of don't think a psionics roll is going to matter here. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Red, yellow, blue. 19. Oh, 7 and 10. Ooh, I'm not going to say that's not too good there. So T'ANA, maybe because she was kind of in psionic contact with them, and Frakes are going to lose around here. So Rick is going to try to fire, and he sees that they're dazed, and he wonders what's going on. So he's the only one going to be able to act this round. And I'll just flip them over for right now. but just for this round. Now, they are going to get to act. Now, they are going to fire on Rick here. I'm going to say they're not going to fire on the ones who are dazed. And Rick notices that. So let's see. What are they? They're +3 and a D8 damage if they hit. Oh, good. They miss. So he's all right. So he is going to fire his pistol. He's at +4 with that. Now, it kind of goes wild. And he notices it all actually goes through them. So they are able to wake up. Now, the good doctor, the robot doc there, let's see what he's doing. He was trying to make a mechanics roll. Oh, he gets advantage on that. Oh, but I said it was disadvantage because it's damage and unfamiliar. So it's a straight up roll. 11 + 3 is 14. No, he needs a 15. So he's making progress, but he's not there yet. He hears the noise in the corridor. So I'm going to say he would probably come out to try to protect his friends. So he's going to make a movement to come out here. Now, I don't count blocks. I just do, is it reasonable for them to move? Okay, so I think these folks are going next. They are trying to, they don't have phasers, but they zap energy right from out of their bodies. And T'ANA says, I think they're sentient. She says, maybe we should set to stun. And let's see who they hit. No, they're going to miss Rick. Let's see. No, we'll do T'ANA. 17 is going to hit T'ANA. 12 + 3 is 15. Yeah, that will hit Phaeriss. So let's see the damage. T'ANA's taking 5. Phaeriss is only taking 1. Okay. So they both take a hit from these energy beams. All right, now it's their turn. And I think what the doctor is going to do is he is going to try to, make some noise and distract these things. I'd say that's a charisma roll. So he's +1 at that. No, doesn't distract them. So if he distracted them, I was going to give somebody advantage. Let's see if my folks hit. Oops, I think I just changed them. Sorry, I had trouble seeing the dice. Let me move this in a little bit more. And we'll see what happens here. So, yeah, Rick, it looks like everybody hits. Good. So that's 3d8. Now, I'm treating them as a mob. So what that means is that, once they're all defeated, I have a certain number of points. So that's 10. And 6 is 16. So they are, that takes them down quite a bit. So they are using the stun and trying to, do something to the, these are very weird creatures. Now, let's see how we do here. And, okay, did they hit? The 11 plus, that would be on T'ANA, +3 is 14. Does that get her AC? Yeah, she takes some damage here. She takes 4 more points of damage. Good thing I leveled them up between sessions. Okay, so the doctor is trying to distract them. And look at that. That's a 20. So I'm going to say he definitely distracts them. I'm going to give 2 of them advantage. So let's have Rick go first. Does he hit? Oops, I keep moving them. 12 plus the 3, that will hit. Does Phaeriss hit? Yes. And does T'ANA hit? Yes, with a 20. So that's 4d8 of damage. 3. And 7 more is 10. These things start to shh. And they seem to space folds in on them. And they disappear. Now, that's not to say there won't be other ones further along. And the doctor says, let me quick see if I can stabilize things. T'ANA, can you come here and help me perhaps? So she comes in and she has science, and it's called nature, but it could be science as well. And she has advantage on that. Yeah, so she makes it. So I'm going to say that gives the Doctor advantage here as he's trying his mechanics. 11 and 20. So with the advantage, he is able to restore power and stop the sparking. And they come in and Rick says, oh, it's good job, Doc. Very good job on that. And Frank says, yes, well, good job to everybody. He said, I don't know what those things were. And T'ANA's again going to use her psionics. This is +3. 17 and 20. So she says, yes. She stops for a minute, puts her hands to her temple, but I'm detecting something further along. There's something more going on here. I think it's that energy anomaly that the scientists brought on board. And she says, and I think it's alive. I think it's a creature. And that's where we have to leave it for today. Thanks for watching. Check out SHADOWSPACE and the Solo RPG framework. You could check out the playlist that I have listed down below and my products and buy me a coffee and all that nonsense. So, but really most importantly, if you could give it a like or a comment, that's great. And we will see you next time.